Okay, yes. It occurred to me that I need to continue this Diablo hardcore story gameplay. It's very easy hardcore. Um, Nonetheless, you play carefully uh, and more meditatively, more engaged in the moment of the adventure of the gameplay. This guy's hilarious looking at this point. Let's resume game and take a look here. It seems to me that many people who I encounter in the experience of being a student of Alan Watts, somebody who follows what he says and it resonates. There aren't many people that I think that actually understand what he's saying about liberation, what the actual liberation message means. But and so when I add comments or interaction, it surprises people. They don't, because they don't understand that the property gimmick and they just haven't gotten to the realization point that defines the mystic perspective. So Alan Watts is talking about any number of things, from technology to social order. He talks about government a lot. In the same way, he speaks of religion and psychotherapy, and the folly of being a business person, a person who is time insane, who is hung up, and so it never has freedom. It's always clutched up and locked up in the watching over what's happening and feeling like they must control it or they must dominate that destiny by force. The liberation perspective is a means of dropping out from that panic, from that supposition or presumption that you possess any kind of control or responsibility to any particular kind of outcome or any good thing happening. The understanding that the good thing is already there in front of you, it's already happening. You don't do something to cause it. You couldn't do something to cause it, and any intention you have of making something good happen is the road straight to hell. It will destroy you to continue down such a path. My arrival points in these thoughts, when I'm trying to have discourse about liberation with people that are important to me and with complete random people that I encounter in the course of people asking questions or trying to hold discussions about things Alan Watts talks about. The one that seems to surprise people the most, is this the right way? I don't even understand where I'm going to get back to this portal. I need to use the waypoint. I don't think this is correct. The thing that's the most, I think, that they're the most unaware of, I guess we could say, is the social order one. In social order, there are literally only two possible there's only two possible social orders. There is a social organism, in which the individual is making decisions And in the social organism, of course, each individual is making decisions. Okay, I think this is the one we're trying to go to. And I believe we probably will encounter enemies here. So in social organism, individual... Oh yes, enemies. Okay. The individual making decisions is what's happening. Why is the individual making the decisions they're making? Well, because that's what they want to do. Alan Watts says in the Joker intro talk, the one that establishes the whole premise of the Joker, that you can only be immoral. The basis for morality is just the way you like doing things, period. It can't be anything else. It can't be because you thought of a new way to scare people into wanting to do something. They have to like doing something or anything the way that they like doing it in order to do it that way. The thing people do is the thing they want to do. The whole argument about the kid and the mother saying sometimes we have to do things we don't like or that we don't want to do. But actually, in morality, it comes down to what you do is what you like doing, what you wanted. And the karma thing that the various religions are talking about is that it just means action. It's your action. It's what you wanted. What returns to you is what went out from you, and that's the karma thing. So what are individuals doing? They are doing what they want to do. They're doing things the way they like doing things. Well, why do they like doing it that way? I don't know. You'll have to ask that individual to figure out why they like doing any given thing the way they like doing it, which is always my final perplexity. It's my perplexity arrival point as a mystic. When I look at society in a panic and in an obsession for dominating and controlling, and I look at them and I say, why? Why do you like this? Why do you like destruction and oppression? Why do you like gaining dominance over somebody? And why do you like it when you get people to do and say the things they don't want to do and say? Because supposedly that's the success point in education or in business, when you've employed people or when you have educated them, and the kids you've educated are now doing and saying all the things they don't want to do and say, and we call that success. We say, great job, you did it, A+, you get a bonus. Something tells me this is not leading us to the portal to heaven. I can't understand what they like about doing things that way. So the social organism is individuals doing what they like doing what they want to do because they want to do it, and not because there's a boss saying, do this my way or I'll kill you. Alan Watts says that governments and rulers hate the mystic because he's no longer afraid of death. He no longer has any ability to be driven and controlled by the threats of the ruler. He can't be driven anymore. So the alternative to social organism is the situation where individuals are not carrying out what they like doing the way they like doing it, and instead they are doing what the ruler says to do. The boss or the ruler saying, do this. This is what we're going to do. We're going to have things done this way, and we're going to have them done this way. And you have to do it my way or I'm going to kill you. That is your only other alternative, the only other thing that can happen, and that's basically your monarchy. Your monarchy is that, a ruler saying, we have to do things this way. What's going to happen is only what I say. And anything I don't want to happen, I'm going to say don't do it, and if you do it, you better watch out, because I'm going to get you. And I'm going to watch, and I'm going to watch the watchers, and the watchers are going to watch you. The Zen imagery in Stanley Parable is very thick in that regard. It really puts across that message of what the boss is and what the boss does. What the boss does is de-individualizes you. He takes away what you individually want to do and says, nope, instead you're going to do what I want to do. And if you don't, well, watch out, because there's going to be hell to pay. And there is no other possible deviation from those two. You either have a social organism where all the individual's will is lifted up, so that it can be seen, so that people are permitted, in essence, to do what they find to be worth doing, and for the reasons they find to be worth pursuing. And that's a group sovereignty. That's the group that Alan Watts is talking about in the Cosmic Networks talk. He is describing the group that has lifted everybody's individual desires up to be seen, and there's an arrival point there where the individuals are carrying out action. And so in that society, what happens in that society is precisely the consequence, the emergent intelligence and emergent productivity of all the individuals deciding their decisions based on their personal moralities. And that's what happens. What's going to happen in the social organism that has that sovereignty is that it wants to see what is the individual desires of people. And what's the result of that? That's what the word emergence or synergy, when Watts cites Buckminster Fuller, he's talking about synergy, the total emergent, what it is when the group does what they want to do, when the things, the wigglers in the system all do their wiggle, and then you zoom out, what's that picture look like? That's what a synergy or an emergence is. It is the emergent intelligence of all the individuals doing what they're doing in a way that is truer and is accurate and it can't be produced by force. It can't be made through a calculation or any algorithm from an external subset or an external individual, i.e. the boss or corporation. Can't approximate it. They can't generate it. They can't imitate it. It can only be made by all of the individual units or cells in the machine, in the organism. Machine is the wrong word here because we're talking about nature, Tao. All of their wiggles together make a picture of something. They make the emergent wealth or the emergent productivity of that social organism. That's the organism, all the individuals involved in it doing all the things that they're going to do. Now, the only way to actually experience that, the only way to experience the social organism's emergent intelligence, its emergent identity, is to not have the bossing. You cannot have some cell or group inside of the organism saying what can or cannot happen and setting what is or isn't tolerated and permitted, except that the other individual cells themselves choose to enact as a result of their own individual morality. So what that means in terms of a mutualistic society is that there cannot be any law or law enforcing group or brigade, in essence, that isn't just simply individuals who have chosen to do lifeguarding and do protecting of citizens because it's what they like doing. So that means if you boil this down to what are the values of a society that's waging peace, this is where I was getting with this discussion of what are the two ways for a social organism to be. Well, it can either be an organism or it can be a no identity, no individualism, monarchy kind of a thing, where there's a boss saying what can or must happen and consequences to pay if not. So you have the peace-waging society. The peace organism is the one that doesn't have that boss saying you have to do it this way or I'll kill you. And instead it has individuals saying, basically, you will do what you like doing because you like doing it, and there's no way I'm ever going to force you to do something other than that. That's folly for me to think that I could ever force you to do something that you don't want to do, that you don't already like doing. I'm an idiot for thinking that I'm going to force you to do something other than what you like. However, you are going to do so in peace. You're not going to take away my peace. You're not going to infringe into my peace, my castle, so to speak. Because if you do that, then I'm going to have to kill you. If you make it so that You are infringed into my peace and my sovereignty, the way I like doing things, and you make yourself a continuous infringement into the way I like doing things. Well, basically, I have two choices. I can walk away from you, or I have to kill you if walking away from you isn't an option. In this mutualism society, that's your final morality, basically. And so you actually have kind of a Dexter identity. He's kind of the Joker in the mutualism society, who he tries to play by all the rules of those around him, and he tries to, in essence, fool the so-called authorities, the others in the system that he's more or less subject to if he wants to function in the way that he enjoys functioning. So he's struck the perfect balance in that situation, because he does need the infrastructure of the so-called enforcers or the other investigators in order to get all the information he needs to take out the actual trash of society. In a more full peace-waging mutualistic society, you basically have that and only that. You just have the Dexter-like guardians who will basically just kill anybody who actually assaults the well-being and the peace of the youngest and vulnerable. We basically, in that situation, you have taking out the trash. That's the only option. If you have, harmful citizens that absolutely will not respect the peace and the education of your youngest, that's your options. You can walk away from them, or you can say, we're taking you out of the society, so we're ending your existence in our social organism. That's just the way it is. That's how the mutualism society comes out. And so if you want to defund police or abolish law enforcing, you need to have a social organism which says what everybody in our society wants is valuable to us. It's essentially the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness thing. The idea that these truths are self-evident, that they don't need any special proof or outside attainment. This is just the way it is. This is just the way every human being is. At birth, possesses the basic sovereignty and the right to peace, a right to pursue their own well-being and curiosity. So we are not that. We are a war organism currently. Peace is the thing that's basically least tolerated. If you want to have peace, too bad. Somebody's going to come find you and charge you with a crime just for existing or just for trying not to die. And if you want to have some peace, you have to set up an arrangement with one of these wardens, I would say. The landlords, the judges, the city officials, the police, they're all war wardens who enforce a state of society where the boss is dictating what needs to happen, what will happen, instead of individuals' desires and their individual liberty to follow what it is that brings them fulfillment, whatever it is they like doing for whatever the reason is that they like doing it. You have to go set up an arrangement with one of these wardens to temporarily establish like a permit, like you rent for occupying a space, for having your peace for that amount of time during that agreement or lease or rental agreement that you've established. This is just one of the pillars of a war organism that is not built around peace. And so as I came to the words that it takes to say this message, to really contrast the war organism versus the peace organism, I started to realize about myself that I walked in these two kind of perpendicular directions. One about opposing coercion, about resisting the use of force, and one about pursuing or promoting healing, promoting wholeness, promoting what is the actions that is going to make you feel the most alive and the most true, the most actualized in your environment, to be whole, to be healed. Like, what is healing was the question I asked, versus what is free will was the question I asked about the anti-coercion path. These were two perpendicular paths I walked along until I ran back into myself, basically. I canvassed the entire surface of the planet that is my person character, metaphysics, ran back into myself, and that was the boom, the sudden realization about what this is, about what monk education is. To understand that we have to stop waging war on each other. We have to stop forcing each other every which way and thinking that we need to exert force, and understand that that's foolish. That's an idiot's task to ever think that it's a good thing to force people to do and say what they don't want to do and say. That it's success to get little kids to do and say what they don't want to do and say, and call that education. It's not. Education is simply two very, very, very unambiguous things, which is being left alone to do what you will for the reasons you find valid for action. The reason for any action that you do being your own. The reason why you yourself found it valuable. And being whole. Having the well-being sensation. The sensation of actualized completeness. Alan Watts says humans are said to be lazy incorrectly. They're just tired. They just don't have the right vitamins. They don't have the right wholeness. They don't have what it is that they need in order to function, which is, when I use this term wholeness, what I mean. Like, we are a rival point for promoting healing, for going after the things that were going to heal you and grow you. And that's it. That's what your education is made of. It's made of peace. Peace is the birthplace, where you were free to pursue that which made you whole, and you pursued it, and you got it. When I first realized this, I just had one phrase about it: school is lunch. It was the whole controversy, so to speak, the so-called controversy over the charge to students for their school lunch and their lunch debt. This is where the whole thing went insane in society, and I can't even understand how there's a debate about this, but school is lunch. The sensation of being well fed with nourishing food is the education. That's the thing that teaches you. The feeling of being well is what you grow because of. If you don't get that feeling, you don't grow, because that's what causes growth, is that wellness that you're feeling. That's why it feels well. That's why it feels good, because it's the way we are wired. You're not being forced around and pushed around by your desires. Alan Watts says it like this: I am my hunger. I am these desires, and hooray, this is great. I love it. That's the truth. So in order to wage peace, we have to come to full terms with the fact that forcing everyone around these processes is a completely dead-end process. It's a monarch's task. It's the task of a king who wants to just force everybody to do things a certain particular way, and not let them have their own peace unless they pay the tribute, so that the king will allow it. And that's a horrible way to run and call ourselves a civilized society. Monk education is just simply my declaration of having dropped out. I do not endorse, nor do I conform to a social contract that does not grant me basic peace as the given floor that I stand upon as a citizen of the society. I don't recognize it. I don't support it. I condemn this social contract. And I drop out from it, and I encourage everyone else to drop out from it who feels the same, who feels like it's pointless to try and force somebody else to do what they don't want to do. So monk education is built as a blueprint for others to pick up and use, for anybody to pick up and use, and the end result is a society which no longer uses force, which supports the basic sovereignty and desires of all of its citizens, or the education, as it were. The growth of every human in the organism is supported via an income floor, which Alan Watts talks about in that Cosmic Networks talk, in one of the other talks in it. And finally, which has replaced the authoritarian school institution with what I can only use the word monastery to describe. A monastery is a place that is voluntary, it is useful, and peace is the purpose. Those who are students in the monastery are the seekers of their peace. They are those pursuing well-being, trying to become more whole, trying to have their curiosity fulfilled, and pursuing their craft. So I've got this whole dichotomy that comes out of the monastery arrival point thought that I'm going to talk about in the first essay series. I'm just improvising this one. This is not out of any of the scripts. But The monastery is essentially a school that no longer forces the kids to do and say what they don't want to do and say, and instead measures success by the mental health, by the well-being of the students within who are seeking being well. This is not the right place, because this is where one of the bosses is, who was on the way to the final tower, but I just don't know where else to go at this point. I'm gonna take a pause and look at where I am. The monastery arrival point is just a school where we don't force people to do and say what they don't want to do and say anymore, and the monastery's sole purpose is to say, come here if you need peace, come here if you need the place to sleep, the place to study your craft, and the meal with which to survive and live, so that you can have that well-being, where the lesson of the monastery is being fed, it's being well. I want to institutionalize peace. I want to live in a peace organism, not a war organism. So monk education's sole purpose is to make a blueprint to say this is how we would do it. We just need somebody else besides me who wants to do this, pick this blueprint up and construct the first monastery and hire me if they want my advice or my input. If money were no object, this is what I would be doing, as Alan Watts says. You need to do what you would do if money were no object. If it were no object, I would already be hiring monks and setting up these monastery facilities as a form of school for dropouts who are tired of the coercion mechanisms of this social contract. That's just how it would be. That's what monk education is. It's my attempt to start this. An education startup is basically what I've come to think of myself or describe myself as. That's the business I'm doing. My business is the well-being of my social organism. I can't stomach living in a society that's killing itself and killing each other with illness, with the illnesses of disconnection and coercion. I can't handle it anymore. I couldn't handle it anymore 6, 7, 8 years ago when I started searching these paths and canvassing these parts of myself to find these questions, to actually find the questions that really allowed me to create my words and come to the creative arrival point. Because I couldn't handle the war organism anymore, and I need to be in a peace organism to function at all. I need peace to function, was the thing I had to realize. And I realized it through my solitude. A long path, but I did. I got there.
Eternal conflict. The Nephilim had done the impossible. By conquering death, he had redeemed the angels and saved all mankind. In that moment, with victory at hand, I saw the Nephilim in a new light. He is a hero who can defeat the champions of heaven and hell, and a crusader who protects the innocent. But within him beats a mortal heart that will one day be tempted to corruption. On that day, will he have the strength to resist, or will he be our doom?
Clearly the answer
My brother was on
Diablo
medication
4.
that
see all these jobs to be done and all this work that gets created. Um, in a peace organism, the work is created by the decisions of the individuals deciding what's important to them. When we spend money on a game, or when we support a game player and a creative who's crafting game-related content or literal gameplay, we are creating that work. So a peace organism must create work via the decisions of the individual. Any other method of creating work, as I said at the beginning of this session, is the monarch. It's the king saying, this is what we're going to have happen. We're going to beat you over the head with it and say, if you don't do this, then you better watch out because there's going to be hell to pay. I'm going to kill you. Which is de-individualization. It's the loss of the individual. It's the authoritarian hell that we don't want to see, but that we actually are living in at this moment. To the extent that people who claim to be leading or to be doing public service are not enacting a system by which individuals will create the work with their purchase decisions. And a basic income floor is, as Alan Watts has described, the means of employing the technology of money in order to express the emergent productivity, the emergent wealth of the social organism, of all the individuals in the organism. So to create the work that we want to see, to create the work that's necessary for the well-being of each individual, you just put an income floor and you allow the individual to exert that spending for their well-being. As a well-being seeker, if well-being is what you want, then you are free to spend your income on it. And when we all do so, or when the majority of those who are possible to seek their own well-being do so, that is when you have the peace organism. And it is not being ruled by any governor or king or anything. You cannot govern by ruling. Alan Watts says this all the time throughout a variety of the lectures I've chosen for the education stack. Anytime I watch the credits, I feel those feelings about individuals being the creators of work. The only thing we have to do is employ our money technology to actualize this in a peace organism and stop being a war organism where the goals of a small, combative, violent entity or singular individual at the top de-individualizing everyone else, taking away their individuality, what's important to them, and the way they like doing things. That's why Alan Watts said it's better to have the short life doing what you like doing than to spend whatever amounts of time doing things that you hate. There's no reason to. It's against your inner nature and your inner hungers to do that. So why even do it? You should just have however long of a life that you can doing the things that you like and stand for something and stand for what you love. And when I stream and create, I do it from a standpoint of absolute and complete passion. I am creating this now because I love this content, this gameplay, and this experience with all of myself, with every particle of my being, and I want you to see something amazing. I want you to be included in it. I want you to be involved in it, and I want to let you into that space in my deepest heart, into the vision of what I like doing and the joy that it is, and I want to share that. And that's all I can do. That's what I like doing, and this is the only way I can live my life. And I literally go insane if I cannot have this solitude time of a monk to share what's important to me and to include and invite all to be part of it. That I can't live any other way. I couldn't, like Matthew Silver, I couldn't figure out how to make the grade. I couldn't find any point to living in such a way that you give all of your time to a career, to an employment career that isn't resonant to your inmost passion and your inmost joy. There's nothing there. It's a complete dead end. It's a darkness. There's no joy unless you actually every single day live creatively in your creative piece, to do your peaceful craft, to create what's important and to share, to be expressing what is important, what gives you joy in your heart. That's what I'm here to do. I was just explaining in one of the stream chats that giving away money is the mechanism of a peace organism. It is the means by which we say we will not be ruled by any rulers or bosses. We will give money to our basic individual citizen and see the actions of that individual as the manifestation of their joy and of their desires into our organism, and so thereby we will be an organism of peace. Because we asked no individual within our organism to engage in giving up their joy, their peace, their well-being for the needs or desires of somebody else. The peace organism is a critical polarity opposite of the war organism for that simple reason, because we've taken away the need to do warring upon others by empowering the basic individual in the organism with monetary sovereignty, with decision power to select purchases for their well-being, if well-being is what they want. If well-being is not what they want, they're free to purchase something else with the sovereignty. No one's forcing them to go purchase well-being. That's the whole definition of it being voluntary, which is how I came to the term peace organism, really, is just the fact that we want to give you the option of being well without saying you must be well. You have the option to do so if that's what you would like. And if that's not what you would like, well, go do something else, Nobody's coming here to force you into any particular course of action, and that's how a peace organism functions.